So, Matt,
Yes, sir.
I put in our layout to the show in
Yeah.
ChatGPT and asked it to derive a intro for me again. This one
Okay.
isn't as zany as that last one I did.
Okay.
But are you ready?
I am ready.
Welcome to Day One Patch Podcast. I'm Ryan, joined by my co-host Matt, and we're here to bring you all the breaking news, updates, and intriguing stories from the world of gaming. Today we're covering Sony's decision to shut down Firewalk Studios and pull the plug on Concord, its recent live service title after a tough launch. We'll unpack what happened and what this means for Sony's live service ambitions. Plus, exciting news for Mac gamers. Cyberpunk 2077 is coming to Apple's new M4 equipped MacBook Pros with enhanced features. We'll explore what this means for Apple's role in the gaming space. And finally, Call of Duty Black Ops 6 just set records for the biggest COD launch ever and brought a surge of new Game Pass subscribers. Could this be a game changer for Xbox? Let's dive into these stories and see what's next in gaming. Buckle up. This is Day One Patch Podcast.
Why is there always a buckle up in there?
I don't know. It's maybe the average the podcast, the gaming podcast of the universe, and most people say buckle up.
I've never in my life heard anybody say buckle up unless it's like a stupid like hold on and they're about to like drift in the snow or something stupid.
I don't like how like their little tease here is always we'll unpack what happened and what this means for Sony's live service ambitions. We'll explore what this means for Apple's role in the gaming space. Could this be a game changer for Xbox? You know, that I didn't like.
Are they getting it from like a written introduction? Like it feels like a script. I know it is, I guess.
Well, they're
technically
pulling
a
from some
script.
script. Yeah.
What I find interesting though is that and I might be wrong here. It's not like we have a source, but it feels as though they're not pulling it from real podcast introductions. It feels as though they're pulling it just solely just solely from scripts. It's almost like they're reading scripts of like plays or something and then coming up with something. Whereas I feel as though if it listened to more gaming podcasts, I don't think it would be like this. Although we told it to listen to the Day One Patch podcast, remember?
Mm-hmm.
We told ChatGPT or Copilot, whatever, to like listen to it, and then we were like, "Yo, like write an intro," and it did, and it was in our style.
Yeah, I thought this one was good though. The other one was I used Copilot, and it was very zany and like wild and really kind of childish in a sense. Oh, misclicking here. This one was okay. This was pretty standard. You know, this almost felt like a TV intro.
Do you have a snippet at the very least of the Copilot one? Is that available?
God, no, I get rid of that stuff.
Is it? Wait, what do you mean you get rid of that stuff? Like you delete the chats?
Yeah.
I got like 17,000 chats, and I hate I hate that it's a chat. Well, because I ask it a million questions a day, and it's like I have 1,400 chats. It's out of control. Like it's
yeah. Oh, I just thought about this, Matt. You know how Copilot is now like this weird Edge like add-on, right?
Well, it's always been in the top right corner of, well, not always.
Yes, but they removed it from the system, and it's now like it just opens an Edge browser.
Well,
are they trying to get people to use Edge though?
Well, no, it doesn't open up an Edge browser, does it?
Wasn't that what it is?
No, it might like rely on like it might be like a wrapped web app.
Yeah, because if you go to like settings, if you open up Copilot and you go to app settings, it opens up the settings in Edge.
Oh, okay. Like that might be the case then. Well, let's see. Let's take a look here. We'll go to.
Well, so what I'm wondering is if you didn't have Edge, let's say you just had Chrome and then you had the Copilot thing show up. If you click on it, does it says you need to install Edge?
Would it say that?
I don't know. That's what I'm asking. Because we all use Edge, but if you didn't have Edge installed or weren't using it, and then you open up Copilot now after that last update that removed it from the OS.
I don't think you can uninstall Edge.
You can't uninstall it.
Well, because I don't know if this is true, but just thinking off the top of my head, it would open up the opportunity for you to accidentally delete your only way to use a browser. So then you would have to like, I don't know, I guess use commands to get another one or like have a USB stick or something. And then that would be a big old disaster.
Get a CD sent to you like the old days.
Yeah. Or like, you'd have to do something crazy. Like here, I can click on, uninstall. Okay. So I just went to the settings. I'm on Windows 11. I believe this is Windows 11 Pro. And when I go to apps, installed apps, I can't uninstall. It's grayed out.
Wow. Okay. That does make sense though. Cause you delete it, then you're kind of screwed.
Yeah. Because like, even if you were like, oh shoot, I meant to like, install Chrome, how are you supposed to install Chrome now then?
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, this is the podcast now. We did the intro. We're in. We're in the podcast, Matt.
We're deep into it.
Yep. How'd your week go, Matt? You were gone away last week. 2 weeks off. What'd you get up to?
I did a what was it, 2 weeks off? Oh, I guess because like we record
Well,
once a week.
you spent 2 weeks off, like you weren't on the podcast, I guess.
Well, I did a pretty interesting thing. I had a on a real train, real moving train. I did a murder mystery dinner.
That's right.
So we like had a dinner, and then there was a murder mystery. It was a comedy murder mystery, and it was absolutely off the chain. It was hilarious. The guy who was presumably running it, or at least had a piece in that, came up to me early, and he's like, "I really need a volunteer. Can you volunteer?" He's like, I need like a helper." I was like, "Okay, like okay, whatever." He's like, "Okay." He's like, "You're going to be a part of the fashion show," and he just walked away. I was like, "Okay." And then it said like, "You're familiar with this person from the story, and you know of this other person, but you don't know this other person," on this little short of sheet of paper that he gave me. And I was like, "Oh, this is kind of interesting." And he told me, when he told me about the not the slideshow, the fashion show, that he was gonna like call us up at some point. So I was like, okay. So I waited, like we had dinner, we came back, and we were like sitting in the booth, and then the show started, and I waited. I want to say at least it felt like an hour, and I had to use the bathroom, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm going to use the bathroom." So I go to use the bathroom. I come back, and the cart where the train car where the bathroom was also had where the change rooms were, and it wasn't like no one was taking their clothes off. They're just putting on like hats and stupid things.
Yeah.
And like I was like, "Oh, like do you need me for the fashion show?" And the guy's like, "I couldn't find you, so I replaced you." And I was like, "Oh, okay. That's fine. I'm not going to be broken up about this." And then at some random point, he's like, "Hey, you got to be a dancer." I was like, "What?" And so he put me with this other guy who was very intoxicated, and we were dancing around the train in front of everybody. And we started doing a conga line. We did a bit of a slow dance. And it was a crazy thing, and I did not guess the murder or the right murder weapon, and in fact, no one did except for one person on the whole train. So a little whack, but it was funny. It was crazy, and I enjoyed it. I mean, I
Had a good
don't.
time?
Yeah, like I don't know if I would do. I would do it again. I wouldn't do the same mystery. Like you definitely kind of, at least in my opinion, really should be there and like experience it once.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, like if I were to do this again, I need to see another mystery. Like it's not entertaining enough to be like, oh, I'll watch this again.
Yeah.
But being a part of the chaos and everything is like, it's pretty funny. So yeah, I had a good time. It was freaking hilarious.
Nice. All right, Matt, let's move on to video game fun fact. You got one ready for us?
I do indeed.
The 28th, is it?
The 28th one, yeah. Yeah, you guys were talking about the 27 that was in my last fun fact that I gave you guys, which was motion controls on the Sega Genesis via
a wild device.
Sega Activator, which I kind of went ham on the research. And so I've kind of stuck with that retro input sort of theme. And I wanted to talk about the Atari controller, but not the controller that we're all familiar with. So the one that we are all familiar with was from 1977. And it was the Atari 2600 controller, and it was a simple one-button design. And I'm going to give you sort of this like background information because it's going to set the foundation, set the stage, let's say, for the disaster that I'm about to uncover. So Atari 2600 controller, single joystick, one red button, intuitive, accessible, easy to understand what's going on. It had a digital joystick. It offered only basic directional, which was up, down, left, right. With no analog precision. And this was great for arcade games because of the simplicity. It was known for it being, quite durable, lasted a long time, even under heavy use, was very reliable, and it's had a springy, self-centering joystick. That's something that we need to note here, a springy, self-centering joystick. Okay. Now, the main problem with this simplicity is that obviously it's simple. And so as games became more sophisticated, the limitations of the 2600's controller became clear. It's like, oh no, like we need to have an A and a B, and we have red. And so what happened was Atari eventually releases another console, and it was the Atari 5200. And of course, there was an Atari 5200 controller. Now, this is from 1982. This is now an analog joystick. And this is also a disaster. So the Atari
Okay.
5200 had a heck of a lot of problems. The analog joystick was one of them. This analog joystick did not have self-centering, so it didn't spring back to the initial position.
That sounds wild.
It sounds horrible, right? Like
Yeah.
it especially with nowadays when you just sort of like push forward, let go, and then your character will walk forward, then stop because the stick is snapped to the middle. This sounds so foreign to us, but this was one of the first analog joysticks on a console, and it was made for smoother variable speed control because it is analog, right? Instead of just up, down, left, right. Um, However, the lack of self centering made it challenging for fast paced games because normally you would want to push up for either to climb up or to jump, go say left and right to go left and right, maybe to duck, push down. But now you're like pushing down, then you have to like push up to the center to stop your ducking or like stop your jumping. You like push up and then push back down to the center in order to recenter this thing.
Mhm.
Now this isn't all chaos. This joystick was actually great for precision based games. So games where analog control was well suited. These games were typically slower games like Missile Command and Star Raiders, where players could kind of make use of gradual and precise movements to kind of make the best move possible. So, it's not all bad, but it's still not great. One thing that sucks here, though, is you might think, well, I have a 5200. Can I plug my Atari 2600 controller in, and now I have a precise controller for certain games, and an older, more simple controller for more simple games and more fast paced games? And the answer to that question is no. You cannot do this. And the complexities didn't just end with this analog, no self centering joystick. There was also a numeric keypad for advanced commands. So to expand the gameplay options, Atari added a 12-button numeric keypad to the 5200 controller that allowed for additional in-game commands. Now, this was largely sort of panned or like kind of people didn't really need it or didn't really use it because if we think about it, we're kind of near the NES era, we're kind of near that. And the NES doesn't have that many buttons, right? Like it
Yeah.
has what was it, a D-pad, A and B, start and select, and then I think maybe one or two buttons on the top. I can't remember now. I never had one as a
I don't
kid.
even think I had that.
Yeah, I can't. I don't think it did. But the point of the matter is, like, we're talking about a very simplistic controller, right?
Yeah.
This thing has this, but this crazy analog stick, and then also a 12-button numeric keypad. So it's just sort of like, okay, what are we doing here, right? Now, again, not all terrible though. So the numeric keypad was great for simulation games. Things like Real Sports Football, Star Raiders again, players could use the keypad to select plays or switch shields. So it was something where, you can quickly go through and it's like, hey, if there's, 6 plays, 12 plays, whatever, you have the options to do this. It's like shortcuts, right? You can kind of think of this, at least in my mind, you can kind of think of it as, a keyboard's great, but some gaming keyboards come with a bunch of programmable keys. Sometimes there's 5, sometimes there's 2, sometimes
Yeah.
there's 12. I think I had one with 24 way back in the day or something crazy like that. So like this is kind of like that, except this is the default controller, so it's a little bit weird. Now, the 5200, like I said, unfortunately was not compatible with the 2600. So the 2600 cannot fit in. And in the future, a 7800, so when the Atari 7800 was released, that controller also would not work because the 5200 had a unique 15-pin connector and analog circuitry that made it incompatible with the 2600 and the 7800. Here's something else that's kind of funny, though, is that you might think, okay, we got this analog stick, we got these 12 buttons, we're good. Incorrect. We got side buttons. We got I'm going to call them paddles, but they're not actually paddles, but that feels like the modern equivalent of paddles. We got 4 side buttons. So there were 2 action buttons on each side, giving players more in-game options through the buttons, like being clicked through. But the problem is it felt awkward to kind of like grip them, and so it was kind of kind of panned by players because it was sort of like, oh, this is kind of out of the way. It's kind of awkward. Like, why would we do this? And if matters couldn't get even worse, or if matters like couldn't get worse, we also had problems with this thing from a technical perspective. So not only was like there's sort of these engineering issues that I've already talked about, this thing constantly had malfunctions. It had fragile circuits. The analog's joystick frequently broke down. And now players are having to deal with frequent repairs, replacements, and all the rest of it. Now, players did have ways to cope, as many gamers will, if we want to work around things in order to get our games to work. And so gamers would at this point often rely on DIY repairs, of course, but the sort of start of a third party market kind of started at this point. And there were third party controllers that kind of fixed some of these issues. For example, there were some third party controllers that had a self-centering analog stick. And some of these third-party controllers also simplified their keypad to make gameplay even smoother. So players were either, doing their own repairs or grabbing one of these third-party controllers, which is, kind of the ultimate fix, I suppose. But, ultimately the 5200 is, largely, or the 5200 controller is largely panned. It's very unfortunate. And so eventually, 1986, Atari releases the 7800 along with the 7800 controller. And this returns to digital. So this actually doesn't even just add self-centering, which you would think, it would be the thing is, hey, I'll have analog and I'll have self-centering. No, this is return to digital and return to self-centering. So they said, that's it. We've had a lot of issues with the 5200. And so they went with this joystick, making it reliable and precise. But it didn't just go back to the 2600. It had a 2-button layout. So it added 2 side buttons for more complex gameplay options while keeping the layout simple and comfortable. While this controller was seen as largely more comfortable than the 5200, some players still found the 7800 side buttons hard to reach, unfortunately. But there's some backwards compatibility here. So if you were a fan of the Atari 2600 and you still had the controllers, which again were very durable, stood the test of time, stood the test of heavy use, then you could actually, for simple games, plug in an Atari 2600 controller into your Atari 7800. And I like to point out that the Atari 2600 controller, we've pegged it here at 1777. The Atari, the Atari 2600 controller, 1977, and almost 10 years later, 1986, and you're still able to use your 2600 controller on, at the time, the new Atari 7800. So this is another example of a game company saying like, hey, there's this cool new innovative technology that we can do for more precise things with an analog stick, where it's literally an analog stick rather than a digital joystick. Why don't we do that? Hey, let's add a bunch of buttons. And it just is a bit of an overstep. And this actually largely, to me, reminded me of the Kinect, weirdly, where it was sort of like, sure, you could, wake your Xbox up with voice. You could, close windows and close windows or apps or games with hand gestures, with arm gestures. You could yell commands at it, but the market really does dictate, things, and a controller just, works just fine, right? A modern controller works just fine for these things. And whereas, the 5200 certainly had its problems in terms of the frequent malfunctions, it kind of overstepped, right? It was sort of like, let's add 12 buttons, let's add side buttons too, let's do this, let's do that. And it's sort of like, it felt very much like that Kinect era where it was like, get the whole family involved and pet this cat in Kinectables and have this go over there and wake up and do your morning workout and get the whole, get the kids involved and go over there and don't just be sitting on the couch. And it's like, okay, we could do all this, but we don't, maybe we're not going to do it. And it ended up not being the most popular thing. But that's it. That is the Atari 5200, controller, its disaster, and then its surrounding controller releases.
But then the kind of Atari just gets kind of blown away by the NES at that point, right?
I'm not sure on the timeline, but
NES came out in North America in 1985.
Okay, so Nintendo definitely starts taking the world by storm, and Atari starts kind of experiencing some problems, that's for sure.
Well, I just think it's funny. It's one of those classic cases where, I know we covered that Atari wasn't necessarily the first home console. It was the first successful home console. It's like the first guys always get screwed over somehow. And I don't know if it's because they do mistakes like this controller as they try to find the right thing,
I think it might be because somebody comes in and approaches the entire problem from a different perspective. Like the 5200, the controller, sure, was a misstep, but it was, a controller misstep, right? And there were third-party solutions and things like that. Now, I don't know how good the games for the 5200 were. Honestly, I haven't really heard about the 5200 too much because I haven't, done more research other than these controllers. So, I mean, maybe the 5200 was not that great. But I mean, research will tell. However, it's like someone looks at the solution for home entertainment that Atari has come up with and goes, I'm not going to iterate on that. I'm going to approach the entire problem in a different way. And I feel as though, like, obviously, as the first time through, it's going to be worse generally than subsequent times through.
Right.
And if your foundation is, I pioneered this, and so we're going to respect that legacy, someone else is going to show up and go, I'm not going to respect that legacy because it's not my legacy. I'm going to go make my own thing. And because I'm effectively a Gen 2, I'm probably going to be better.
That's the interesting thing, because if you look at this 5200 controller, they kept the joystick, the big joystick right in the middle, because they're probably thinking, it's Atari. The 2600 had the joystick. This thing's going to have the joystick. That's what the people want. That's what they liked. That's why they buy Atari, the joystick. But then you look at the NES, there is no joystick. There's a D-pad and two buttons,
Yeah, there's just no there's no attachment to that design. There's no attachment to the joystick. It's very much just like, well, these controllers work.
Right. And
that's
joysticks eventually came back with the analog sticks on the PS1, but not even the original PS1, because the original didn't have analog sticks. They eventually came back, but just having that one in the center didn't seem like it was the right input for the time, right? Because like the NES and the Sega Dreamcast and stuff, they didn't have analog sticks, and those were like the big major consoles in the late '80s and early '90s and stuff, right?
Well, I guess it's paying not necessarily homage, but it's definitely inspired by our arcade machines.
Yeah, yeah.
So I mean, it's a natural thing, I suppose, to have a joystick, and I mean the joystick, when it's in its digital form, largely is just a D-pad, just a different way to do it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, especially especially with the 2600 is a good example. Like the 2600 controller was, universally loved. Like I have a couple 2600 controllers here because I have an Atari 2600 and like the controllers still work great, right? Like they're original things. Like one of the sheaths came out, I like just reapplied it and that was it. Right. And then it works great still. Yeah. And so it still totally works. It's just, I feel like they overstepped massively with this. Plus it, I don't know if it was lack of testing or bad components or whatever, but like imagine having something that is like a little bit quirky to deal with, but it's still cool, right? Still has like the 12 buttons, whatever, but then also fails a lot. So you're like kind of on the fence about using this thing. Cause like at the 5200 controller, realistically, you could ignore the keypad. You could ignore, all the buttons, but let's say one of the side buttons, and you could use it just like an Atari 2600 gamepad if you really wanted to. Yeah. But like this thing is going to be like sunk by the fact that it's like you're just sort of like, I don't really use most of the features. Center. The no auto center is a problem. Yeah, like the no auto center is weird. And then also like the failure rate, it's just sort of like, okay, like this is not great.
So what was the console after the 5200? The
7800, which was in 1986. And the 7800, again, was a return to digital and self-centering, which I'm surprised they didn't try to stick with analog. Like, I'm just surprised. It just feels like it's one step forward, two steps back. It's like, we've learned.
This thing's wacky.
Like, we've learned from the 5200, so we're just not going to have analog. And it's like, well, I don't think analog was the problem. I think.
Did you look up the 7800 controller?
No, I'll do that now. Oh, this thing is definitely to like fight the NES, isn't it? Although, wait a second,
I'm seeing a few two versions here.
I'm definitely seeing a few different controllers.
One looks like the 5200 one, but look without the buttons, without the keypad, and it just has like a big old analog stick and then two side buttons.
I think that might be the original. Oh yeah, so the 78. Okay, this is from a forum. This is from AtariAge.com. In their forum, there's a picture of the one we're talking about with the two side buttons. There's a big analog stick, and there's a really big Atari with like a rainbow like underline underneath it.
Yeah,
it's called the 7800 Pro Line controller, and these are the original pack-ins here in the US. They're painful to use, and the years have not been kind to them. I find most of them to be mushy and unresponsive. Even when they were new, they weren't ideal. Yeah, there isn't much reason to use them today, but if you collect if you collect for the 7800, you're going to end up with quite a few probably. And then variant 7800 Pro Line rebuilt was the best rebuilt with the best gold components. If you want a Pro Line or two, I would recommend going this route. I bought several of these myself, and the difference is day and night. They feel more clicky and responsive and retain their awkwardness. But they retain their awkwardness in use, but they're a big step up from the non-rebuilt Pro Line.
So what's the one you're talking about there?
So there's another one where the controller, so there's the side buttons, but on the front here, it literally just says joystick. And there's like a toggle switch that has like two positions, it looks like. And so this is like a rebuilt one. This is a variant of the 7800 Pro line. I mean, there's lots of controllers for these dang things. Like,
yeah,
there's even a Euro gamepad, a 7800 Euro gamepad. And like, these are obviously, like, I would imagine largely in Europe, which from their name. So yeah, it's a lot of controllers, which like we've kind of lost this a little bit in modern gaming, where it's
we
like we
refined
don't
it to what's necessary.
right, but it's weird that like even on the Xbox original, it was like I mean I'm gonna ignore the Duke because the Duke was replaced, but it's like we have the original Xbox controller, and then it's like we had Mad Catz coming out with ones that had lights and special things and better grips, or like smaller controllers even and things like that. And it just felt like we were in like a different era or something. Like it just felt like people still wanted little differences. Whereas now it's like there's still the elite controllers, right? Like there's still like the quote unquote pro controllers from Sony, and there's also the elite controller, whatever they're called, from Xbox. But it just feels like there's less. I don't see anyone with third-party controllers anymore, I guess is what I'm saying. Like everyone,
No,
I guess we've just designed ourselves into a corner at this point.
Well, for the longest time, third-party controllers were pretty garbage. I don't know if they're better now. I know, like Razer has some, right? 8-Bit Do, I think, makes some controllers, if I'm saying their name correctly. But yeah, they tended to in the past were always garbage compared to the actual controllers. But there's probably a few right now that are pretty decent, but I just don't care to buy them because I want the proprietary ones, or they're not the proprietary, but the ones that come with it.
I mean, there's going to be a lot of third-party controllers for PC because, like, I mean, I guess you could say the Xbox is the default, but there's SteelSeries controllers. There's going to be a bunch of controllers for PC for sure.
Right, SteelSeries, yeah. Maybe I should buy one just to give it a go, see how it is.
I always hate the analog sticks on everything. Like I feel like the OEM Sony ones and the OEM Xbox ones just have the best tuning for the sticks. I don't know if that's me being used to it or being biased, but it always feels that way to me.
Yeah. But I saw like Call of Duty like partnered with some controller manufacturer, and their controllers basically looked like an Xbox or a PlayStation controller, but just with a Call of Duty skin on it. So I'm wondering how those ones feel.
I guess there's like the Scuff controllers too. It just feels like a lot of them have like, I don't know, been like designed into a corner, and like there are differences, but it's just not as like dramatic as it was. Like I don't recall like at least a mainline like mini PlayStation controller, for example, right? Where that we used to have back in the day with Xbox and things.
Although there is a mini PlayStation controller now, isn't there?
Is there?
Yeah, I thought they made one for like accessibility stuff.
Is it like an accessibility controller like the Xbox like touchpad one where it's like the flat thing with all the inputs and outputs and stuff on there?
I don't remember. I don't see it anymore either. Anyway, all right. Thank you, Matt. That was great as always.
Well, thank you, Ryan.
Jumping into our first story for the week. This is a big one. Sony closes Concord studio and permanently shuts down the game. This is from The Verge. So Firewalk was the studio. It's now that PlayStation bought like a few years ago, and it's now shut down. But yeah, they were behind the game Concord that it took offline last month after a disastrous launch. And a message to PlayStation staff, Herman Hulst, CEO of PlayStation Studio Business Group, says Firewalk Studios will be closed alongside Neon Koi, a mobile game studio. The shutdowns will affect about 210 jobs, Bloomberg reports. Quote, "We have spent considerable time these past few months exploring all our options," says Hulst. "After much thought, we have determined the best path forward is to permanently sunset the game and close the studio. I want to thank all of Firewalk for their craftsmanship, creative spirit, and dedication," end quote. Hulst says that the Concord didn't hit Sony's targets and that the PlayStation maker will, quote, "take the lessons learned from Concord and continue to advance our live service capabilities to deliver future growth in this area," end quote. So Concord debuted on August 23rd on both PS5 and PC, but Sony took the game offline on September 6th after poor sales of the game. Estimates have put game sales at under 25,000, and Concord only managed to hit an all-time peak of just 697 players on Steam, lower than the launch peak of the Lord of the Rings Gollum game. So,
That's a little rugged.
the thing with the Gollum, though, the reason why the Gollum was a little more popular was it's based on the franchise, and it kind of became hilarious, and so people were probably playing it on Twitch and stuff for fun because it was a ridiculous game. You know what I mean? Concord, however, just like no one seemed to have interest in it. I'm actually curious if anyone would talk to the actual people who purchased it and see what they actually thought and why they made the purchase in the first place.
Well, I hear that the Concord gameplay was actually half decent.
Yeah.
Like, I know it suffered from a lot of people didn't like the game or the character design and things like that, but I hear that the game was actually, not that bad type thing, which is a little bit sad. It's like obviously some time, well, obviously, like, I mean, literally, but like obviously some time was put into, tuning the game so that, it was pretty good on launch, at least gameplay wise. So this is a little rough. I'd also like to say that I'm kind of sick of these really big projects being really big, costing a lot of money, taking a lot of time, and then they're just sort of like, fuck it.
Yeah.
And it just, to me, it just feels very strange to be so nonchalant. Like, it's almost like they're as nonchalant as like, should we hang out today? No, I'm not feeling it. All right, cool. It's like they're as nonchalant as that, but with a big game. It's very weird.
They did take months to figure out what to do. They probably weren't just like, we're going to shut them down immediately. They probably talked about it, looked at the numbers, there was some decision-making process that happened, right? But you're right overall that it does feel like, and I think I saw that one of the Rockstar guys tweeted about this or whatever, saying that like it's just crazy that they spend, millions or sometimes billions on these studios only to shut them down after one failure. And it's like, what a waste of talent, because by all accounts, Concord was decent. Maybe try giving them I think he mentioned like an IP or something. Have them work on a game, on a single player IP based game. I don't know.
Release Concord as free to play. Like,
try
something.
Yeah.
Like, try something with Concord. Like Sony would likely be able to float Concord for six to 12 months if they just said, all right, we're gonna give you 12 months, we're gonna throw it up free to play, and we're gonna see how it goes and see what happens. Like, I'm biased because I'm definitely a person who doesn't like to give up on stuff, so I like stay to the end, and I always want to like fight for stuff and like whatever. Like, sometimes to a fault. Like, sometimes I'm not like that if I'm not into something or whatever. But like sometimes to a fault where I'm like, I'll like be all beat to shit. Like, I mean, a classic one is like a classic and funny gaming related one is like, I've gone out on a pier in the middle of winter in an ice storm to catch a fucking Rayquaza for fucking Pokemon Go, and like came back home and was like, oh fuck, like I feel horrible, like I'm in trouble, and I couldn't get warm, like an idiot. Jesus. Right?
Yeah.
And it's like, that's like being dedicated to a fault at that point. And I feel as though, like, I don't necessarily want these people to be dedicated to a fault, but I would like it to be more than, hey, it took all these years to build this thing, gather all these people, hire them, onboard them, have them work on this project, ship the project. Oh, it didn't work? Okay, shut it all down. Don't worry, we'll learn about it next time. And then chances are they'll hire some of these fucking people on their next goddamn project. It's just like, what the hell is going on?
And I guess it's tough when we're not the ones, we're armchair, CEOs and executives right now. It's probably tougher to make the actual call, but it's like we have seen games turn it around and become successful. Like Cyberpunk, fixed a lot of their problems and became a massive game that everyone like now loves. No Man's Sky is one of the biggest ones that was such a complete failure at launch, and they won freaking like Game of the Year or something, or whatever award they won at the Game Awards. Not Game of the Year, but like, best ongoing game or something like that. So there's examples of places being able to turn it around with just given time and maybe a bit of rebranding and a refresh or something like that. But it's kind of shocking that they were just like done, studio closed.
With the amount of time that was put into this as well. Like, I mean, maybe they're looking at other games like Suicide Squad right now, which is not
Yeah,
doing well, and they're like,
yeah,
oh, like we don't want to deal with this.
that's
But
the risk.
like,
Yeah.
but like that's the risk, right? Like you're what costs more, trying Concord as free to play or scrapping everything, not having expenses for a number of months or ever again from Firewalk, spinning up another studio or spinning up another team in an existing studio, starting from scratch on another games as a service game that may flop in the same way. I
And then what are you
mean,
gonna do? Shut that one down when that one fails too? Like
yeah,
there goes
like
another
shut it down, shut it
studio
down.
and talent. You know.
It's just like, why wouldn't you just try something? Like, I don't think that they tried anything. It doesn't, or at least it doesn't feel like they've tried anything.
Well, yeah, because they didn't. They literally launched. No one bought it, and then they didn't try anything. They took the game offline. It's not even like they said, "Oh, it's gonna go free to play," or do like some free weekends or anything like that. They just shut it down. They took it offline right away.
Sony has like a bunch of connections via their own other departments with movies and stuff like that. I mean, Fortnite is a good example of a game that does great with crossovers. They didn't even try some crossover stuff, like from free weekends, like stuff and like things that you're saying, Ryan. But then, oh, people don't like the skins too much. Okay, well, let's bring in some of our licenses. You know,
Hmm.
whatever we can legally bring in. Maybe you could bring in Venom if that's legal, or like whatever, like whomever and whatever licenses you have from your movie universe, from your other games, bring those into Concord and make them,
You know what?
skins.
My theory is that Sony's worried about their image nowadays because like the big one was what's your favorite game there? The Booze Man. Oh, you're blowing your nose. Sorry.
Days Gone.
Days Gone. It's like that game apparently sold okay, wasn't reviewed very well, and then they're just like, no, you're not getting a sequel.
I think it was like sevens
And
though. Like it wasn't
and
horrible.
yeah, and I guess the studio was kind of upset that they didn't get a chance to do a sequel or anything like that because the game was mediocre. Fun to play, but the tone of it was mediocre. And Sony's like, no, shut that down. You know what I mean? And then here you have a live service game that becomes a bit of an embarrassment when no one plays it. And are they just like, nope, we got to cut it off now? Cut the cancer out and try to save our image at all costs. We only make quality games at Sony. We need to protect that.
It's like I kind of feel like they've proven that they don't. I mean, they made Concord. It doesn't sound like a jerk, but it's like in
But if you look,
Days Gone's not up to snuff. They made that
but around it, they had like Helldivers 2, which was a big success.
until it blew up.
Until people got angry at some of the nerfs and changes that they made, but they're correcting it. But yeah, it was a big success at launch. And then you had Astrobot, which look, everyone loved and had high review scores and things. So like this, like they can still make good games, but then they just like the Concord, we just don't even look at it anymore. Goodbye. It's wild.
I mean, at the end of the day, like Concord is another hero shooter trying to like beg you for your time in a
And a
world
paid
where
one.
and a paid one in a world where you could download Overwatch 2 for free and play
Yeah.
that for free.
Yeah.
And if you had skins from the first game, you can use those for free, and
Hmm.
and that's it, right? Assuming
Yeah.
you're using the same account. And so, I mean, it is a hard sell. Like it. To be fair, it would be an uphill battle. It's not like Concord was breaking new ground and we're upset that like the new ground was broken for a few days and then it was shut down. That's not the case. So maybe like that's probably also in their decision making is like, what is it going to take to get this thing off the ground? And like somebody probably gave them a ridiculous number, maybe a ridiculous amount of time, maybe a ridiculous amount of
Hmm.
money. It still feels bad not to try. It still feels bad. See, it's one thing. Like if Sony had released Days Gone, which they did, and then they would go ahead and they release Greenlight and release Days Gone 2. And Days Gone 2 does bad or does the same, which they consider bad. I mean, you can end the series there. Like you could just say, "Oh, like Days Gone's not really what we're thinking of doing." That's it. Like what I just don't understand the like total dismissiveness. I think it's going to hurt the industry kind of in general. This is kind of what Sean Layden was talking about, right? A few weeks ago, where it's like it's like this like striving for the absolute best review score. I mean, of course, right? You want to get the best review score you can, but it's like you want a blockbuster only. Like I only make blockbusters. Like no, you don't. You make blockbusters in between your stinkers, and you bury the stinkers.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, a peak number of what do I say?
697.
697 players on Steam. Maybe it was such a disastrous, no one played at launch that they just figured it isn't recoverable. Because other games that recovered had more players than that. You know what I mean?
But here's the thing. Taking it offline in just a few days is a huge story. People start
Yeah.
talking about it. People know what Concord is now.
Yeah.
If it becomes free to play, are people going to try it out because they're interested now? To see, I got to see what happened here. I got to see I mean, how many of them will stick around? Like, we don't know
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. Jeez. All right. Well, I mean, this will probably be the last we hear of it, I think, right? Um, what's the crazy part too is like it seems like Sony was kind of betting big on it. Or not, well, there wasn't a ton of advertising, but there was advertising. They showed it off at their state of play. It had like it was either the opening or the end or somewhere in between. I don't remember. They had a controller. There's a Concord DualSense controller, you know. So they were thinking it was going to be something. And maybe just the 180 on it, you know, they just like, we're done.
I mean, because they were probably thinking a hero shooter, if successful, is a great way into the world of games as a service.
Yeah.
And it is. Overwatch is an example of that. Yes,
Yeah.
I know some people think it's dead now, this and that, but Overwatch is still alive. And even if it dies today, it was successful. It's been around for years, and it's been around the block. It's survived being premium, having loot boxes, going free to play. It survived all that. And so if it dies now, you can't steal its prior success away from it, right? Whereas
Right.
like Concord, sadly, it has never had its day. And the thing I want to be like clear to the listener right now is like I don't care about Concord personally. I don't think I would play it. I'm not a huge hero shooter player. I play a bit of Overwatch with you guys because you guys play it. If you guys all quit Overwatch, I would never play it again. Right? It's just not my thing. I just just to be totally clear, I just do not like giving in when the options have not been exhausted, especially when it's the. Is this the biggest waste of resources we've ever seen from PlayStation? This is a triple A game that came out and in a matter of days was taken offline and the studio shuttered. Is this the biggest waste? And I don't have the numbers on that. Like, obviously, there's going to be games that almost made it out the gate and then the studio gets closed or the project gets canceled. Totally understand that. And that's obviously a huge waste. But this feels like the biggest public waste, maybe.
Do we know how much money they spent on Firewalk?
I want to say that number did come out. I don't know. But, like, I just don't get it. Like, I almost want to say, like, it almost makes better sense or more sense to, like, almost spin up, like, you have PlayStation Studios, obviously, right? It almost feels like, is that what it's called, PlayStation Studios?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, PlayStation Studios. It almost feels like, you know, just organizationally speaking, you should have PlayStation Studios and then have each one of these dev studios be like their own team. And if one of them fails, it like you have the safety net of PlayStation Studios. You reallocate most people, you reassign that team something. Like, imagine if a corporate team, like you're in an office, like an accounting office, and somebody messes up one of the taxes, like on like tax team one, you're working at an accounting place. Tax team one messes something up. Do you gut tax team one and then rehire tax team one? Like that's silly. You just go, okay, you've been reassigned. Like you're literally the assignment for tax team one is different, or tax team one's new assignment is to correct what they've done. You know, there's like ways around it. You don't go, everyone in this team is fired and we're going to rehire all of you because we still need your like that amount of productivity. That's just silly. I just feel as though PlayStation Studios, and I'm not saying that it promises this, but it to me, it feels like PlayStation Studios being such a big thing should offer a safety net to these other studios under it, where where they go, okay, hey, if you have a big misstep, like we're the safety net, right?
Yeah.
And there's not unlimited chances, but I mean, like this is almost like being independent. Firewalk is independent, hypothetically. They release Concord, it fails, Firewalk goes away. Same, same thing. Like basically the same thing would have happened.
I just looked it up. So I don't think we actually know how much they bought the studio for. This article's from Push Square. From Tuesday, I think. Just last Tuesday it was posted. Concord cost Sony over $200 million in development costs. Okay. But this says the actual cost is likely much higher than that because this number excludes the acquisition of the developer. So While the final figure is unlikely to be quite as high as the previously reported $400 million, there's a good chance it was within touching distance of Marvel's Spider-Man 2, which allegedly cost around $300 million to make, and they didn't make a single cent from it.
It makes you wonder if you were running a studio and Sony approached you to purchase it, and you wanted the studio to stay open, you weren't just in it for the money.
Mhm.
Would you sell
Don't
to Sony?
I would still I
What's
would
the
say
safety net?
yes. I would still say yes. Because it's not like they're closing studios left, right, and center, are they? How
No,
many did they
but
close?
you better not make a misstep.
Yeah.
Like Bend has the benefit of they've been around for a while. They've been around as a support studio for a while as well.
They made some good Vita games too.
And Days Gone was not a 4 out of 10. It was more like a 7 out of 10, critically speaking.
And I do think it sold decently well.
So like, you know, Bend kind of like justifies its existence in the PlayStation Studios name under
Yeah.
that banner.
9
But
million copies of Days Gone, apparently. If
how
that's not a
many?
success, 9 million.
I mean, it was successful enough to port to PC.
Yeah. Like this is what I think the studio was angry that it was a successful game and it didn't get a sequel.
Right.
And that might be the Sony protecting their image kind of deal.
So like, I mean, it really like the Ben Studio incident, whatever you want to call it, and then the Firewalk Studios incident. If I ran a game studio and I wanted that game studio to stay open beyond filling my own wallet, would I sell to Sony? I
I
understand there's
think
going to be more intricacies than just that. There's going to be like a lot of business dealings and licenses maybe that I have access to, and the list goes on. But like, would I like these things have to be taken into consideration, I think now.
well that's the thing, right? So Firewalk, this was their only game. They were a brand new studio, right? So they didn't really have a history of, proving themselves. So if you were a studio that had some successful games already under your belt, I'd probably feel a little safer selling to Sony. But if you're a brand new like Firewalk, then maybe you gotta, rethink some things.
It's certainly a question, right? Like
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
is part of the decision making process.
But I don't think just with Sony, with selling to anyone in this current, video game industry landscape, where just like development costs are too high, risks are too high, and missteps are immediate failures, right? So I think it's just a tenuous time for everyone right now.
The sad thing is that I mean the sad and the good thing is that the AAA side of things is suffering, but the indie side of things still seems to be, not that I'm a business expert or in the space, but a lot of indie studios are still flourishing.
Hmm.
And a lot of that has to do with the fact that if they didn't make a misstep, either they fix it or whatever. Sometimes it ends up with them shutting down. Missteps can cause failure of the studio. That's still possible. But like a lot of these indie studios also make multiple games,
Yeah.
and they don't take 10 years each, 7 years each, 8 years, and like that hurts them. Like this all comes back to the Sean Layden stuff with AA games, where it's like, honestly, like there really should be some AA games out there, right? Like
Hmm.
it really feels like we have largely blockbusters, and then indie games.
Yeah.
That's the only thing we have now. And yes, some indie games become blockbusters. I get it, but that's just what it feels like. Whereas like EA could make a couple AA games. I mean,
Yep.
they really could. I mean, maybe Immortals of Avium.
Yeah, all right. That's kind of all I have to say on that one. Sad, but that's the way she goes. All right. Next story. I kind of put this in here for myself, Matt, so forgive me. But Cyberpunk 2077 will launch on Mac next year. This is from The Verge. So, according to Apple's announcement video for the new M4 equipped MacBook Pros, CD Projekt Red's sci-fi RPG will be available on Macs early next year. Quote, taking full advantage of Apple Silicon and advanced technologies of metal, the world of the dark future is available to Mac gamers for the very first time, end quote. Or I guess it continues. Players can enjoy advanced features like path tracing, frame generation, and built-in spatial audio for even more immersive gameplay and stunning visuals, end quote. The game will be available on the Mac App Store and Steam when it launches next year. The version launching on Mac is the Ultimate Edition, which includes the very good Phantom Liberty expansion. And CD Projekt Red says that existing PC Steam purchases of the game will carry over to the Mac. You'll need to have a Mac with Apple Silicon to play it, though. play it, though CD Projekt Red spokesperson João de Mello declined to comment on if the game will run on Macs with M1 chips. So if you have a first generation Apple Silicon chip, you might not be able to run this. However, it's a chunky game. Apparently, it's you need a pretty beefy PC to run it pretty well. And although it runs on Steam Deck, right? So
More than that, it's Steam Deck certified.
yeah, so they must have been able to somehow get a version that kind of works. And you'd probably want an M4 chip at the minimum, though, if you're running Cyberpunk 2077. But Matt, we kind of talked about this, on our own time about Apple's gaming strategy, and you have like certain reservations about it.
Well, it feels to me like they're not all the way in it. Like it feels like they're more in it than they've ever been. But like you the other day, Ryan, you were telling me that they showed off like one of the Tomb Raiders on stage.
When they first announced the Apple Silicon chips, and they talked about the translation layer, Rosetta 2, right? That would translate a x86 game into an ARM game.
Right.
They showed it playing, I believe it was the original reboot Tomb Raider, and they said look at it playing, without any optimizations.
But there's another one that recently happened too, right?
Not a Tomb Raider game.
Oh, I thought it was something. It was some older game though, right? Like because like you and I had a conversation.
Control.
That's it.
When they announced the new M4 Mac Minis, they showed it playing Control.
And like I had a comment about that. I was like, why do they keep showing older games? Like they're not showing more modern things to show off like the power. It's like Cyberpunk 2077 coming to Mac. Sure, like that's great. I don't get like I'm not against it, but it just feels like if you're a gamer, you still wouldn't buy a Mac.
Yes.
And or you wouldn't not have a Windows PC.
Yeah, and actually, someone on Threads actually commented, because I commented on the post that Cyberpunk is coming to Mac, and I was like, "Oh, I'm super excited! I can't wait! Hope it runs well." Blah 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 blah. Right? Someone said like, "Why would you game on a Mac?" And I kind of told them it's my hobby within a hobby, right? I just like seeing, because I'm a Mac fan or an Apple fan, I like seeing how these games perform. But no one should really choose a Mac as a gaming platform if that's their sole purpose. Like no one should do that, really.
So then the question is like, what are they doing?
Trying to break into a casual gaming audience, I think.
By getting games like Cyberpunk 2077?
Sure. I mean, I've had lots of friends and family members who just game casually, and just one day, this was years after it came out. Like years after it came out, a friend of mine was just like, "Oh, I'm playing Assassin's Creed 2." I was just like, "What?" He just casually played games. He wasn't a big gamer. He didn't know what the modern releases were. He just saw Assassin's Creed 2 and decided to try it out. So those people exist.
I guess I'm more thinking of a casual gamer as someone who's playing a game that's not generally a AAA title. Like I'm thinking they're playing like more family friendly games, maybe simpler games or games that are less violent or thing. But that's not necessarily true. Like that's a good point. Like it's and there's also like the whole like patient gamer thing too, right? Where like some people will just sit on something for a while, and then I use Macs for work. If Cyberpunk comes to Mac, then I'll check it out. If it doesn't, I guess I'm not playing Cyberpunk. Like so, like I guess that would be a good definition of a casual gamer as well.
Yeah, and they showed off Control simply because it's not currently on Mac, and so it's a new title to the Mac platform that was popular. Did it win Game of the Year? Am I mistaken in that?
I honestly can't remember that far back.
No, sorry. It was IGN's Game of the Year. It didn't win the Game Awards, but so it was a popular game. It's coming to Mac, so they showed it off. But if you want brand new, Assassin's Creed Shadows is coming to Mac. That's like they at the same launch as the rest of the industry. Same date as on PC and on console. Mirage was only like a slightly off. It was like a few months, from when it launched. But the weird thing about Mirage, it is not on Mac. It's only on iPhone and iPads. That's a weird one. And that's like a relatively smaller game that you think would run pretty well on a Mac.
That is a little weird that that's not there. Like that's like I think like holes like that are what make me kind of question Apple's strategy. Like if they're trying to get the casual gamers, like you're saying, it makes sense. But then I kind of question it's like, well, then why even really mention it too much? Because if they're casual gamers, are they watching these keynotes to find out about games
Well,
like after the fact? Like, I don't
now,
know.
now you have to think about the keynotes not just being for consumers, but for potential other developers. Oh, Apple is showing off games at their keynote. That means they're taking it seriously. Maybe I should look into bringing our game to Mac. You know,
Right. Okay.
like if Apple seems to be taking it seriously, then you might have a little more faith in doing that. So I think there's several things that has occurred here. Apple must be having some outreach to developers or something to get games on Mac. Apple Silicon is like for the first time that Apple has had actually good GPUs in their systems that can game, and it's across the board too. The MacBook Airs have Apple Silicon, their iPads have Apple Silicon. They can all now basically just run good games and run them well. And then they have that. They launched I can't remember the name of the service, but it's like some sort of app that will just run the game without you doing anything on the Mac. So you take your Windows version, you plug it into the software or whatever, it runs on the Mac, and you can see the performance without having to do anything to the game as a developer, right? And so if that works particularly well, the developer might have very little to do in terms of actually getting the game to run on a Mac. And so
Right.
it could be very low development time, very low cost to bring it to the Mac. And so then at that point, it's like, why not? Even if we sell, a few thousand copies, it's worth it because it was such a low cost for us to get it onto that platform, right?
Is that out now though? That tool?
Yeah, yeah. I think that's what a lot of these places have been doing. Have been using that.
I mean, if that's the case, then it does sound like they're trying to appeal to the casual game market. Like, fair enough.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm definitely like a person where I'm like, yo, if you're gonna get into this, like, get into it, like, go hard and kind of get it done and try to like beat Steam and stuff. And I understand that's an uphill battle, right? Or like,
yeah,
well, Steam is on Mac, like, right?
yeah.
Like, there are
Hmm.
Mac games on Steam and stuff. So like,
Yeah,
I mean, you don't even need to beat Steam, like, like,
yeah.
I don't know.
I was when I was playing Tomb Raider the other night. That was on Steam on my Mac.
Okay.
Yeah.
It just, I don't know. It feels weird. It just feels like they're kind of going at it slow. But if it is for the casual gamer, then that makes sense.
Hmm. Or could be going into this hard. I don't know because they've launched a game mode for both Mac OS and iOS, which like prioritizes games like the performance. It lowers the sample rate for wireless headphones and controllers. Um, so they're doing stuff like that. So it does feel like they developed Metal, which is basically their version of what do you call it, DLSS and stuff. So they got ray tracing now, so they're doing stuff.
How long do you think it'll take for like a lot of games to end up on day one? Like you mentioned Assassin's Creed Shadows already, but do you think that there's going to be more games that come day one, or do you think it's just going to trickle in like it is now?
Hard to say, and I think the risk is that it's unclear if Apple won't just one day say we're done. We tried, not enough games are selling, we're done. And so maybe developers are a little hesitant in that sense, right? So it's still up in the air right now whether the Mac actually will become a somewhat decent gaming platform.
It is one of the hardships of relying on third party software, right? It's like
Yeah.
Apple themselves are not going to go out and make a bunch of AAA games for their new
No, but
technologies that they're adding.
I would actually encourage that if I was, anyone with a say at Apple, is that, if you actually want to show that you're taking it seriously, is like you buy a studio and you develop Mac first and Mac only games,
Such as Concord, and then shut that studio down.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, a lot of places have shut down studios like that. Netflix bought a studio or made a studio, shut it down. Stadia had studios and shut those down. So,
What a mess.
yeah. Alrighty, Matt. On to our last story. Call of Duty. What more do I need to say, Matt?
I was gonna say, like, you just say Call of Duty and you say nothing else. Like, what's going on here?
Black Ops 6 was the biggest Call of Duty launch ever. Sets new single-day Game Pass subscription records. This is from IGN. Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella says Call of Duty Black Ops 6 was the biggest Call of Duty release ever, setting new day one and opening weekend records as sales on PlayStation and Steam jumped 60% compared to 2023's Modern Warfare. Game Pass also benefited from Call of Duty's release, setting a new record for the amount of new subscriptions in a single day. Call of Duty Black Ops 6 launched last week, saw strong concurrence on Steam that outperformed Modern Warfare 2 and 3. The leap in subscribers would seem to validate Xbox's big bet in launching Black Ops 6 straight into Game Pass, giving the service a shot in the arm in the midst of its recent growth struggles. Analysts predicted that Black Ops 6 could boost Game Pass subscribers by between 2.5 million and 4 million, but at the cost of traditional sales. But for now, at least, Black Ops 6 seems to be doing just fine amid strong overall reviews, though it currently sits at mixed on Steam, owing to complaints about multiplayer lag and map balance. But how do you feel about this launch? We've been playing it a bit. We were there day one.
I mean, in terms of Black Ops 6, I mean, the game, I mean, I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah.
I really like the Omni movement. I played the beta. May have mentioned that on the show, but I played the beta and I thought the Omni movement was going to be, I mean, it's almost the meme is that it's, for the younger folk, but I've really taken to it and it's like, I've been doing really well. Like I've been doing the best. This is the best for my own personal performance, like in terms of like kill death ratio and stuff. This is my best Call of Duty launch ever. Like I'm already doing pretty good. Like my kill death ratio is positive. I'm having fun. I'm not getting absolutely destroyed in a lot of matches. And I'm not necessarily destroying in a lot of matches. I'm having a lot of good fights. It just feels fun right now. So, I mean, for me, this is a pretty dang good launch. This is kind of similar to Modern Warfare 2, 2019's or whatever that was, Modern Warfare 2. I don't think it's 2019. That might be Modern Warfare. But anyway, the newer Modern Warfare 2. Ridiculous that they're both the same name. But anyway, I mean, I'm glad also that I didn't have to buy it. But you and I were talking about that, like, sacrifice in sales, because I mean, you and I, Ryan, would have been the people that purchased it to play it day one because it looked really cool. And it's unfortunate, I guess, for Xbox that, we didn't pay them, $70+ to do so. However, you could argue that the majority of my Game Pass usage right now has been Call of Duty, and I feel valued as a customer because it's there as a part of my subscription. So it's monopolizing my usage. So if it monopolizes my usage for a few months, I've effectively paid them, $60, $70, whatever it is. And then if I decide I'm valued as a customer, I'm going to buy some skins, that doubly validates it, which is absolutely a thing. I've absolutely bought stuff in the store for Game Pass games that I would not have normally purchased because I'm like, well, I got the game, for quote unquote free, or I got this game for a good deal, so I'll buy this bundle in the store.
Yeah. In terms of like the sales though, like sure, maybe a large percentage who normally buy the game didn't end up buying the game, but they might have made up more new subscribers, right? Which might, I don't know if it balances out or is better in the long run that these people are going to stay on. A certain percentage of these people are going to stay on with Game Pass who are brand new to it. So it being the biggest Call of Duty launch ever, it's like that's pretty big. That must be a big increase in sales overall and in Game Pass subscribers. So it as of right now, it appears to have worked out. And I think Microsoft just had their earnings call like last week, and I think their gaming revenue was up. So I don't know if that included Black Ops in there because it's probably past the quarter. But that's pretty good.
I mean, that's very, very good. Like that's very good news for Xbox. Like it's
Console
about time
down,
they.
though.
What's that?
Console hardware sales down.
Well, I was going to say it's about time they get a win
up.
though. Like it's like a lot of their games have been mixed messages, and yes, I know that like it has a mixed rating on Steam right now, but I feel like that might just be the COD community. The COD community does seem to be particularly. They criticize a lot. I don't know how else to describe it. Like I just feel like sometimes like I'm like, man, this game's freaking sweet. I'm gonna see what other people think. And it's like this is the worst Call of Duty ever. I couldn't even fucking pick up my controller before my head blew up. Just like I was so mad. Like I just lose my temper every 2 seconds. Like I mean, I was doing all right. So a lot of people are just being like, oh, there's a new COD out, cool, and then they don't do what I did and check online. They just jump into COD and there you go, right? And then not to mention that obviously Game Pass subscribers are limited to Game Pass subscribers. It's not limited. It's not open to PlayStation 5. So anyone who bought it on PlayStation, anyone who bought it on Steam, they still get those game sales. So that's pretty good, right? Because there's still going to be COD purists that are like, well, I'm also a Steam purist, and so I'm going to buy it on Steam. I'm not going to buy it on Game Pass, or even maybe they don't have Game Pass. And so it's like, I mean, fair enough, right? You're still going to get those people that buy it. I'd also like to know something, though, too, is like it surged Game Pass subscriptions, but are people planning on just playing it for a little bit? Because the question is it's like, if you were like, yo, I'm going to buy this so I can play Black Ops 6, and then you like continually purchased Game Pass moving forward for like $20 a Canadian or whatever the heck it is now a month for Ultimate. You've Ultimate, 20, 40, 60, 80, like, 3, 4 months in, you're like, hang on, I'm approaching, if not, I've already surpassed what I would have paid
Yeah.
for Black Ops 6, which is the problem that Adriano had with the Dead Space remake. And so
Yeah.
it's like, unless people aren't like, doing the math and they're just sort of like, they don't care because it's spread out over time, the payments are spread out. Maybe that's the case. But I'm just curious, like, you're right. Like, how many people are going to stay on? Obviously, some are, right? Like, some are going to get, like, oh, I'm kind of done with COD. What else does Game Pass have before I cancel it? Oh, it has this. I guess I'm not canceling it. And then they, they stick around, they stick around, they stick around. So there's definitely going to be some people that do that too. But
Mhm.
I'm just curious, like, how many of that or how much of that surge is going to stick around? How many of them were like, I'll do the campaign, for $20 or whatever for Ultimate, and then I'm going to leave.
Well, I mean, the typical consensus is that most people don't play the campaign, so they'd probably be sticking around for the multiplayer, which can last longer than the typical 5 hour campaign. So I'd imagine maybe not all, obviously, but a lot. I think a lot of those people would probably stick around for a bit if Call of Duty is their thing. Maybe some people are just caught up in the hype, just checking it out for the first time. New gamers, Gen Zers getting into Call of Duty. Who knows?
It'll be an interesting it'll be interesting to see how like subsequent large releases that do well, like that review well or whatever, how subsequent large releases what they do to Game Pass. Because like as
Mhm.
Game Pass subscribers grow, obviously like we've been told that the amount of gamers hasn't been growing. The total amount of
Mhm.
gamers hasn't really been growing. And so it's a question of like, well, is there a plateau coming for Game Pass where having a game that, maybe is massively successful like Call of Duty won't see a surge because there's no surge to be had.
You know what's interesting about the gamer like base not growing? It's very odd because I guess they're going off of console sales, right? Like PlayStation 2 is like one of the best selling consoles of all time, if not the best selling console of all time. And so console sales have never really beaten that era. Now, a lot of that might be people buying it for the DVD capabilities. Back in the day, it was like the cheapest way to get a DVD player because I remember DVD players being stupidly expensive when they launched. It was kind of crazy. Um, so maybe that's skewing the data a bit, much like the Wii sold to non-traditional gamers because it was more of a party game, more of a system to get your parents doing Wii Fit or whatever, or trying these different things. It was more um, accessible because it's just motion controls, so that maybe that skews the data a bit too. But yeah, in terms of console sales, it's like we're not really beating previous records in terms of sales. So I guess that leaves it interesting. But what I find odd about that though is like we're kind of like I don't know if you want to say second generation of gamers. That first generation would have been like the people who were more teenagers or adults when the NES came out, right? And then we were like kind of in the PS2 era. Um, and then maybe there's like now the third generation, but isn't that adding up? Do people drop off of gaming after a while? You know, where's all these gamers going?
Well, they definitely drop off. Like there's definitely like parents will buy consoles for kids for them to do something, and kids may play, games with their friends in high school and stuff, but many will drop off. I mean, just
But
like if
I mean older gamers though. Did that first generation of console gamers drop away?
yeah, because like they got
And
older,
and
right?
and there weren't enough, younger generations to pick up the mantle.
Well, you can even see it like from our own friends list. Like how many people on our friends list were, online every day in high school or whatever,
That's true.
or
That's
early
very
college,
true.
and it's gone. And like we're a pretty small sample size. And it's like a meme
That's a good
online
point.
too, where it's like, oh, the boys are never online anymore, blah blah blah, right? It's like
Yeah.
but really it's like that is a thing, right?
We maxed out the parties on Xbox.
Yeah, we used to have 8 people in a damn party, and we used to have people banging on the door to enter. Like it was
And
ridiculous.
now it's like an average of 3.
That is partially due to like the separation though. It's like I'll be in a party on like Xbox with some people, and then like we're not all on PlayStation. Like whereas back in the day, there was no like, hey, I'm on my PlayStation in a party. It was
Mhm.
like, yo, join the party, and everyone was in there. Like people playing Halo, COD, didn't matter. Tales of Vesperia, whatever the hell else people were playing back then. It was like whatever you were playing, whatever you were doing, you were joining our party. Now it's like there's like separation, right? There just is now. So that's the weirdness. Like I would say I play with almost the same amount of people, but like a lot of it separately, which is a little unfortunate. Because some
Yeah, that's
people
interesting,
also
man.
like go single player game too, right? Like people like prefer single, like they don't want to play like competitive shooters. Well, I like competitive shooters, so damn, you know.
Well, the freaking whiplash between the console generations too kind of screwed everything up. So it was like we had that gang during the 360 era, right? But then PS4 kind of took over the next era, and not everyone wanted to switch over to PS4, or
Right.
they did something else, they stopped gaming, whatever. And like that's when it first fractured, right? So I find that strange. But when you have school, when you're a student, basically the whole point of your day is just to go to school, and then after whatever. But I just remember like after you get done school, you would kind of hop online at night, and everyone was there. That's just what everyone did, you know. But then as you get older, you get lives, you get people got married, people moved away, people have kids, people got jobs that have different schedules, and that fractures it even more.
Yeah, so that's probably why, like, a person who's, I mean, dare I say indoctrinated, I don't know if that's really the right word, but someone who's indoctrinated into gaming at a younger age, or even an older age, like at any age, is not a guaranteed gamer for life.
Hmm.
You haven't gained them as a customer for life necessarily, right? And I mean that exists in many other industries as well, but gaming seems to be like one where people do absolutely fall off.
And that first generation of gamers probably fell off the most, you know, because that was back when it was seen more as a child's toy, that serious people didn't play games and stuff like that. But I think that's definitely changed. But we'll see. It doesn't sound like it's still growing though.
I mean, like at the end of the day, here there's money to be had. Like a lot of these sort of like growth talks definitely stem from like the capitalistic, like we must grow, we must grow, we must grow. And I
Hmm.
get it. I don't really like it, but I get it. Like that's like a rule of whatever, rule of business. But at the same time, it's like you're not making $5 though.
Well, I mean, tying this back to Apple, like Apple wouldn't be trying to get into gaming if there wasn't money there.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
Like
for
Apple would
sure.
just be like, "There's only 100 million. Well, we make more than that, so
Yeah.
I'm gonna leave and
Yeah.
not do that."
Our polishing cloth made more than that.
Oh,
That sucker
doubt,
sold out, man. That's sold
doubt.
out.
Not
It's sold
100
out.
million. 100 million? Well, you shake your head at me. First of all, the audience can't
A
hear it. And second of
$35
all, I don't believe it.
polishing cloth that's sold out. I don't know about 100 million.
And how many was in stock? Like, hang on, but there's a lot of data
Yeah.
missing here,
Yeah,
Ryan.
I know there is. You're right.
Like, there could have been 15 in stock, and then it was like, man,
Yeah.
this made $100 million. Meanwhile, like somebody forgot to restock the damn thing. There was only 15 total or something.
Here's the funny thing about the polishing cloth. I'm just trying to verify it really quickly. Okay. So if you go here, Matt, check this out.
Oh
We're
no.
doing this live, all right? I'm putting it in the Zoom chat. This is the polishing cloth for Apple, their store page. Okay.
Okay.
Just scroll down a bit to like product information. You'll see overview, what's in
Yeah.
the box. Look at compatibility.
Oh,
Click
fuck
click
off.
on compatibility.
What do you mean compatibility? So if I have an iPhone 4, I can't clean it with this because it goes down to iPhone 5, which is the earliest that I see in this list personally.
And what's funny is like this list is huge. You know.
iPad mini first gen. I got one of them. Oh, I actually co-piloted it. Oh, shoot.
What do you mean you co-piloted it?
I actually like highlighted it and then accidentally pressed co-pilot, asked co-pilot to do something with it.
Okay. So this has kind of become like a running joke that every new Apple product people go to check to see if the polishing cloth is compatible or not.
I mean, do they add it right away? Like when the iPhone 16 comes out, like is it
It's on there.
added
The
that day?
iPhone 16 just launched like a few months ago,
Oh yeah, I see it. Pro 16, 16 Pro Max, 16
or
Pro.
even just last month, I think.
This is ridiculous.
It's only $20. That's actually pretty decent. That's not as crazy. Oh,
Is that-
I'm on the American side.
I was gonna say that sounds like an American price to me.
Yeah, yeah.
Doubt. I'm freaking almost said Phil Collins doubting you. Cole Phelps.
But how many would they need to sell? Let's say $20 times how many do you think they sold? Just give me a random number.
Wait, you want me to say how much I think they sold, but it's a random number?
Well, you don't actually know. There's no way to actually know how many they sold.
All
So
right, a million.
you're just guessing. A
1
million?
million.
God, what's a million with the freaking? Oh wait, that's 20 million. Right? That's easy. That's $20 million right there. If they sold a million of them, that's $20 million. They probably didn't sell a million of
You said 100 million. Now you're saying, well, they
them.
probably didn't. Like, come on now.
No, no, they probably didn't sell a million of them. If they did, that'd be amazing.
That would be pretty good.
All right, Matt. That's all the news for the week. Moving on to what we're playing. Matt, you're the only one here. Tell me what you're playing.
I'm doing what?
Exactly. Yeah. What are you doing?
So I've been playing some shit. So I have been playing the Godfather game on the PSP, and it's really bizarre. So I mentioned to you guys like, oh, it's a strategy game, and blah blah blah. It's called Mob Wars, and I'm interested to get into it. And I boot it up, and it starts taking me through the story, and it's a 3D game, just like the one that I played back in the day on the PlayStation 3, where I'm like extorting shop owners and buying rackets and crap, and I'm running around in 3D. Now the difference is that you can't drive, or at least I haven't been able to drive yet. I feel like you can't in this game. So the missions, instead of you like driving to them and things like that, it's quite literally like you do a mission, like you like, oh, extort the shop owner. So you extort the shop owner, and then it's like, all right, cool. And then it cuts to the next mission. Now, the weird thing is I did this for a few missions over a couple nights. I've only played this thing for a couple hours, maybe an hour and a half. And I get to this part where it opens up this menu and it's like, hey, you've completed as far as you can in the story right now. Now you need to play Mob Wars. And I'm like, wait, what? And that's what the game's called, Godfather Mob Wars. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I go in, and now it's the strategy game that I was talking about, because on the back of the case, the physical case, it has like a strategy game map overlay.
Mm.
And it had like a pretty rugged tutorial. Like it was just like, you could do this, 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 you could do this. Okay, you got it,
Oh
you got
my
it. Is that all
God.
right? You can access this in the help menu. And then just like took off. And I was
A
like,
disaster.
holy fuck, like what can I do? And then my PSP died. So I haven't so I haven't continued, but like now I'm doing the strategy thing. And apparently what I need to do is I need to progress Mob Wars a certain amount, which allow me to do like missions in the story. And like I have to kind of do that relationship. And once I beat Mob Wars, because there's a menu that shows me the progress of each. Once I beat Mob Wars and the story, I become the Dawn of New York City.
Wow.
Which is a title that was also given to you in the PlayStation 3 game, Dawn's Edition, like the Godfather Dawn's Edition.
That's
I don't
impressive,
know.
though.
I don't know if it's in the other ones, but weird game. Like that's pretty weird that it was like on the back, it's like, yo, it's a strategy game, but actually it's a first person shooter, or it's a third person shooter. And I'm kind of thinking to myself, I feel like people would have wanted to play a near PS3, minus the driving experience with the shooting in that on the go. Like I feel like you should have friggin' put that on the back as well.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, bizarre. So there's that. I also played and completed the story, although I rushed through it, of the new Diablo expansion. So I've done that. I rushed through it to level up my character.
Oh, so you did have to buy the expansion?
I did buy the expansion. That's correct. I've been playing as the new class, which I believe is called the Spiritborn, and I've just been able to start doing damage. Like I'm able to like hold my own, not perfectly, because I'm still building the character, but I'm on Torment 4 difficulty, and I'm able to do a fair bit of activities by myself with some difficulty. So still kind of building that character out in that regard. Other than that, we've done a whole bunch of the Fortnite. Or I shouldn't say a whole bunch of the Fortnite. We finished the season on Fortnite.
You finished the season.
I finished the season, and then I used my V-Bucks to purchase more levels, and I purchased to the end of the special rewards, minus the colors. There's 3 pages of different colors. I didn't get those.
Right. Yeah.
But I have all the rewards, so that's cool. And then we also been doing a heck of a lot of Call of Duty, playing Call of Duty online. Been a great fun. Kill death ratio right now is like between a 1.1 and a 1.11. Keeps going up and down between those two, so that's pretty cool. I'm actually positive, and I have a buffer, and it's the first day or the first week of me playing it, which is awesome.
You know what I gotta say? It kind of feels right to be playing Call of Duty on Xbox for some reason. Obviously, it didn't launch on this franchise didn't launch on Xbox or anything, but just that Call of Duty was there as like a centerpiece for the 360 era makes it just so tied intrinsically in my mind to Xbox. And just playing it again on Xbox is just like, it takes me back to right before college.
Yeah, we used to play a lot of Black Ops, like the original. We used to play a lot of Modern Warfare, like Call of Duty 4,
Hmm.
World at War, even. World at War is where I kind of started dropping off a little bit. Black Ops got me back. I never played Modern Warfare 3. I booted it up, played one match, and was like, all right. And then I never played again.
I remember us playing a lot of Modern Warfare 2
A lot of Modern Warfare 2. Yeah, that's right. I was fucking bad at Modern Warfare
and
2.
and Black Ops 2, right?
I never played Black Ops 2.
Oh wow.
Like, you guys were definitely
That must
playing
have
a
been me and Aaron
bunch.
then.
I think I might have been like when I went to like college for the first year. I didn't really play much Call of Duty, but I was definitely online with you guys though, because I
Yeah.
remember going online a lot when I had like my first college job, like during the summer vacation.
Mm.
Because you guys, like a lot of you guys were doing a victory lap in high school, so like I was, or even a bunch of you guys were in college still, and like we all still gamed it up.
Yeah.
Interesting. I can't remember what Call of Duty or what the hell we were playing back then. But anyway, like we played a lot of Black Ops 6. Pretty good. Don't know if we're gonna do the story. In typical Matt style, I'm like, that story looks awesome. Cool. Okay, let's log on to online and let's just do a couple matches. So there's that whole thing. Also in Fortnite, did something real freaking ridiculous. I purchased Brian O'Connor's Nissan Skyline GTR R34. Put the original. There's a bunch of paint jobs you could put on there, and put the original paint job from Too Fast, Too Furious on there. And
Damn it.
I'm loving it. Like it's every time I hop in an appropriate car, I just turn into Brian's Nissan Skyline, and I blast
And
off.
we're watching Tokyo Drift tonight.
We're gonna watch Tokyo Drift tonight, which is an awesome throwback for me, and hopefully an enlightening experience for you.
I've never seen it. I've always been told it's the best.
It is the best. You'll learn what DK is, although we told you a million times.
Donkey Kong.
And you do, yeah, you do the thing from the movie. They're gonna do it in the movie. Like he's the DK, Donkey Kong, Drift King. Like fucking pretty good. That's my name in Forza Horizon. The AI says that. Welcome, Drift King. So that's that. I think that's largely it. I did a little bit of Company Heroes 2. I did a couple rounds of that actually. Kind of went down memory lane a little bit. Did a couple rounds late at night one night, and that was pretty fun. That game is fucking hard sometimes. We're just doing comp stomp, but holy crap! Sometimes the computer knows what they're doing, and we had a war over a single there. So the map we were playing, I don't remember the name of it, but the map we were playing was like a completely burned out city, and and in this game you need to connect your regions. So I can't just go all the way across the other side of the map and grab an ammo region, which gives me ammo. I have to connect all the way through it. I need a supply line. And so there was this one point that was like this huge interconnecting mandatory thing to have a decent supply line. And I was playing as the Americans, a friend was playing as the Russians, and the Germans obviously were against us because it's a World War II game. And holy fuck did the Germans fight for that point. That area was already blown to absolute shit and burned down, and that area was destroyed. It was absolutely decimated. I was firing tanks, fucking mortars, artillery. They were firing artillery. We fought over a single point on the map for an actual hour and 10 minutes.
Man.
A real time. It was like when we finally broke through, the silence was deafening. I was like, are we good? Like, did we lose? Like, why is it so quiet? Fucking bombs going off, people screaming, medics running around. Somebody kept blowing up my damn ambulance, which was pissing me off. My airborne were getting shot in, so I was bombing them. Disaster. But that game is fun as hell. I want to get the third one. I hear it's bad, but then I also heard it's good. I heard it's good from critics and heard it's bad from other people.
Mm.
So I don't know what to think, but we'll see what's up. Because I think Sega released them. Sega got rid of Relic, but they just allowed them to become independent again. They didn't shut them down. So
Why isn't that an option?
Unlike Concord,
Yeah,
Company Heroes 3 will live on.
they were a private company, and then why not just go back to that?
That's what they did. Like Sega was just like, yo, you can just go back, and they're like, all right, and then that's it.
Because I guess whoever owned it would have had to like pay Sony for it. They wouldn't just let you slither away, right?
Well, I mean, it depends. Like, it depends on if like a deal is made where it's like, yo, you guys want to be independent? Cool. Give me 5% of your sales for 5 years, or like whatever.
Something like that. Yeah. Yeah.
So whatever, for legal purposes, like, I mean, they have all the lawyers and crap to figure all that crap out. But I think that's it. I think that has been my week, and I still want to play Space Marine 2, and I haven't.
Although people are angry at that now. They nerfed a bunch of stuff, just like Helldivers. They made
Mother of
some changes that
Christ.
the audience is not happy about, and they review bombed it.
I've said it a million times, so I'm not going to go on a rant, but that pisses me off. Like, you can't keep review bombing stuff.
It ruins the whole point of reviews in the first place.
Yes.
If you just use it as a weapon like that. Yeah.
It's like
You should just ignore the reviews now.
it's like if something is legitimately bad and the reviews naturally disappear, then or the good reviews naturally get degraded to bad, then
Yeah.
okay. But like review bombing is silly.
Speaking of reviews, I've been playing Dragon Age The Veilguard, and I've been loving it. It's been fantastic. It feels like Dragon Age is back.
Is that what the consensus is, or are we review bombing that as well?
No. That's what most people are thought. Obviously, there has been some outrage over the thing we talked about. Not outrage, but people like getting pissed off or whatever. But overall, apparently, user reviews have been positive. I think it's number one on concurrent players on Steam right now. I think it's EA's one of EA's like best launches for a single player game, something like that. So it's doing well. I think it's fantastic. I during the trailer and like some of a lot of the promotional shots and stuff, I didn't like the look of the game. I thought it looked cartoony and kind of weird. Like the character models themselves are kind of like distorted. They're very cartoon like. But in the game itself, and I have a nice TV, just a base PS5. I can't wait to see what it looks on the PS5 Pro. But it looks good. The art style that they chose works really well. I think just overall, the game has an aesthetic to it that is very pleasing to me, at least. So I was very happy that I liked it. I think the characters are still like too wonky for me, though. Everyone seems to be very stout. There's no thin, tall characters. Everyone's like kind of bulky, and that bothers me a bit just because it's just a little strange looking.
I saw someone post on social media that everyone kind of looks like they've been a part of a claymation, like they've been put through a claymation filter.
Yeah. But so far it's been running well. It looks well. I did try to run it on fidelity mode at the start, but the 30 FPS kind of made me sick after a while, which is very weird.
Oh,
Because it's one of those things where my entire life I played games at 30 FPS because I've always been a console gamer. But now once I've been doing everything with the frame rate, I just can't do it now. I need the frame rate. Part of the reason why I bought the PS5 Pro, which is coming out next week, and Dragon Age does have a PS5 Pro update for it coming out, I guess. So I'll be able to run it at a silky smooth and get my gorgeous views in at the same time.
well, what's your status with Star Wars? Like you haven't beat that yet, right?
No, but that's also getting a PS5 Pro update. So I think once I get my PS5 Pro, I'm gonna just crash through Star Wars and knock it off the list.
So you're gonna put Dragon Age on hold then?
Not on hold, but indefinitely. But I'll prioritize Star Wars.
Okay.
Yeah, it will get done, Matt. I'll get to it eventually.
I mean, I ripped on you until you finished The Witcher 2, and I'm doing it to you right now.
Witcher 3, and that was a massive game. That was a lot
Oh, it
of
was
work.
Witcher 3. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Every time you logged in, I was like, well, you're playing a game you're not going to finish. So
But I did.
you did.
But yeah, that was huge. All right. That's pretty much all I've been doing. A little bit of Overwatch, a little bit of Fortnite. Call of Duty Black Ops is awesome.
How are you adapting to the Omni movement? You didn't know you could double time until like the second or third night we played it. You're like, man, there's 2 levels of sprint. I'm like, I literally double time every time I spawn.
The only danger is like getting your weapon up in time if someone runs around the corner, right?
My weapon goes up faster than a default weapon from double time.
Okay. Yeah, you got that covered.
My MP5 is fucked.
Omni movement is okay. It obviously leads to people just being chaotic. Like people are flying across the map
Yeah.
and sliding around corners, and everyone's like Halo jumping and jumping around corners and firing instantly because they just assume someone's there. So it's made Call of Duty, which was already chaotic for me, even more chaotic. But there is a kind of fun element to it, and trying to master it yourself is also kind of enjoyable. So it's good.
What is the last Call of Duty you played multiplayer? Because the jumping around corners is a oldish thing now.
I have played like most of the campaigns, and every time I do that, I will jump into a few matches of multiplayer. So I kind of have played them all. So I guess Modern Warfare. I haven't done Modern Warfare 3, but Modern Warfare 2 would probably be the last multiplayer I've done.
That's the one that I remember the most, having the jumping, where people would jump in pre-fire. Infuriating. Absolutely fucking infuriating. So I joined them.
You got to. You got to. You can't complain because like they're not. It's not something they're going to stop you from doing.
No.
Right. So you gotta adapt.
One of my favorite things to do is to dive in this game through a window, smash through it, and
Yeah.
just hold the trigger, and then people are just like, ah! He just like open fire, and it's just fucking chaos.
Yeah. Yeah. It's good stuff. All right. Thanks for joining us, Matt. We stream on Twitch, twitch.tv/DamonPatch Media. Wednesdays at probably starting earlier nowadays. Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern. And doing some more Remnant, I think. Making our way through that DLC. Did we finish it? No, we didn't finish it. Right?
I don't think we finished it. No, I don't think so.
Okay. Yeah, we'll be doing more Remnant 2 DLC. So
actually, we finished like a bunch of dungeons, and it's a winding web maze of chaos.
Yeah.
So we're probably gonna be there a while.
All right. That's it for now. See ya.
Hey yo, peace.